do you want to be found and where can people find you?
Oh, the old Graham. On the Insta?
The old Insta. Sorry, she did.
All you hip and cool kids out there.
That's the way you sound. That's the way you sound, hip Beth. So you can find me on the old Gram. It's the Germany Experience, the podcast about life in Germany as seen through the eyes of outsiders. I'm your host, Sean, and welcome to another episode. And before we get to my guest, and in an interview that nearly never happened, and I'll get to that, I want to talk to you about two things. Firstly, if you listened to last week's episode with Jessica, you would have heard me mention that the events in the USA that have been going on and the discussions around racism have made me take a look at my podcast. And I realized when I did that the show is not as diverse as I intended it to be when I started out in the beginning. I guess I just kind of got lazy and booked guests that reached out to me, but I really should have been seeking out more diverse stories. And that's on me, and it's something that I'd like to change. So in the future, I'm going to be more focused on bringing more diverse voices and stories to the show. There's not going to be any major change. It's still going to be all of the discussions that you're used to. It's just that I'm going to be actively trying to find a way to look at the whole spectrum of the Germany experience. It's not something that's going to happen overnight because I need to find the right guests and book them, but it's something that I'm consciously committing to. Secondly, I found a potential show sponsor. Now I want to talk to you about this because this has an impact on you as the listener. And I want you to understand that why I'm doing that. I never started this podcast to make money. It was never one of my intentions. It was really a labor of love. I wanted to talk to people. I wanted to connect with people and network and bring stories that people could relate to about Germany and living in Germany. But the fact is, running a podcast costs money every month. And that's for hosting fees, monthly fees for online software, equipment. And I've always thought that it would be good to recover those costs somehow. Now, there are various ways of doing that, like offering a Patreon membership or something along those lines. But I think one of the better ways to go might be to have a show sponsor. So I'm going to try it. Starting soon, either next week or shortly after, this podcast will have a short sponsored message at the beginning of the show. I've been very careful to select a sponsor that is relevant to you, and I'm going to be doing it in a non-obtrusive way. So it won't be in the middle of a discussion. It won't be in any way that interrupts the flow of the podcast. It's going to be right at the beginning, and it's going to be out of your way in a few seconds. Now, I'm going to try it out for a few weeks. If you hate it, then I'll drop the idea, because in the end, your opinion matters hugely to me. So I'd like you to send me your thoughts by sending me an email at info@thegermanyexperience.de or leave me a voicemail at thegermanyexperience.de/message. I'd like to hear your opinions on me including sponsored messages in the show. Now, speaking of leaving me a voicemail, for a few weeks now, that's exactly what you can do. You can leave me voicemail messages, as I said, thegermanyexperience.de/message. And I got my first one. This is a voice message from someone named Julio who lives in Montevideo in Uruguay.
Hey, Sean, what is up? This is Julio from Montevideo, Uruguay. Kind of a weird place to listen from, but I enjoy your podcast a lot. I listen to it every single week, and I enjoy your guests. Also, your sense of humor is quite interesting, so keep doing what you're doing.
How amazing is that? Thank you so much, Julio, for sending me that message. And if you want to leave me a message, positive, you want to criticize the show, you want to tell me some of your thoughts, I think there's a 30-second limit to it. Go to thegermanyexperience.de/message and get in touch. Leave me a message. Now, on to my guest this week. It's Beth from USA. And this interview, let me tell you, this interview nearly didn't happen because in the beginning, I sometimes set up a prep call with my potential guests so that we can get to know each other and kind of go through the discussion that we're going to have. And I accidentally stood Beth up twice. Now, the way this happened was I sent her an option of a date and I was waiting for a confirmation, which never came. And she assumed that it was confirmed simply by me suggesting it. And I thought it wasn't confirmed by her because she never officially confirmed it through email. You can see how complicated this is getting. So this happened twice. If you cannot believe this, it happened to us in the exact same way twice. So the fact that she was still willing to try a third prep call with me was amazing. And I think her husband was actually starting to doubt that there was even a podcast because she kept making these appointments that didn't happen. And then we recorded an interview. It was great. And then I listened when I came to editing the interview, I realized that there were audio problems. So I had to sheepishly approach Beth and say, listen, can we redo the interview? But she couldn't have been nicer about it, and we did it. And that's the interview you're going to be hearing today, and I really appreciate Beth. Beth, thank you for sticking with me, because it ended up being a very fun chat that we had. Now, we discussed the 5 phases of culture shock and how they related directly to Beth's experience in Germany. We also discussed how she went through 7 years of unfulfilling jobs in Germany before she found the right one, and also how she had the expectation that she could just slip back into her career after having a baby. Take a listen to the interview that nearly didn't happen with Beth from the USA.
So I grew up in Minnesota, Ohio. I kept moving every 10 years, it seems, a little bit more east. So apparently in 10 years, I'll be living, I don't know, in Siberia at this point. So Minnesota, Indiana, school in Ohio, started working for the airline then. And then I met my husband while working for the airline in Newark, New Jersey. And we fell in love. He's my colleague. He represented the Frankfurt, Germany market. And
so he's German, obviously.
Exactly. Yes, he is. Yeah. And well, it's quite the flirt, that one. He sent me intercompany Rittersport and whatnot.
Well, I think in German terms, that is just about the greatest love gesture that you could have. A Rittersport through internal mail. My God.
That's right. And it was one of those seasonal flavors. No, I don't know.
Whoa.
What? So, yeah, he really wooed me, but he was still my colleague. So we had known each other for several years. And then the end of 2011, he invited me over. It happened to coincide with his birthday. No fireworks, so to speak, right at midnight, but then quite soon after,
all right.
I think he had said to me that he thought I just traveled the world and saw colleagues around the world, because that's one of the perks of working for an airline.
Right. And that's said, what you would do. Just go and see random colleagues. I have many colleagues, and I don't even want to travel within like the state that I'm in to see them.
Let alone
across the world.
Across the world. Yeah. So flew over. That was it. That was it. He bought a ring, I think, 8 days later, and his friend was like, maybe you just want to buy her a pair of earrings. Be a little bit sensible about that. Yes. Just saying. Yeah. And he figured that all American women love grand gestures, and he had seen 1 or 2 Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks films, and he proposed to me 3 weeks later at the top of the Empire State Building.
Okay, now so I'm actually torn as to whether the Rittersport gesture or the top of the Empire State Building gesture is bigger. I'm not sure.
It was good.
It's tough.
It worked. Either way, it was. Here I am.
There you are. Okay. Well, that is.
So it's a story. It was very fast, and so people are like, "Whoa, are you pregnant? What's going on?" I said, finally, after so many years of relatives and friends telling me that whole "you just know" thing, which I thought was complete BS. I'm like, no, what? So that was it. We were off to the races. We both knew we wanted the same things, and that starting a family would make more sense over here, be closer to his parents, who are a little bit older. That, it just overall, it was like, yeah, that's it. So I made the move. We got married with our civil ceremony in the U.S. In May, and then I moved over in September of 2012.
Okay, and here you are.
And here I am.
Still in Germany 8 years later, so some things must be going right.
Yeah, wow. I hear that number. I'm like, wow. What? Yeah, we had baby, house. We built a house. It was like bum, 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 everything right after another, like really in succession, quite a bit. So
not only did you have the move of countries, but you also had that transition into motherhood, married life. So everything at once.
All at once. Ooh. I mean, I had really identified myself through my career. I mean, my last name might as well either have been my sport, fencing, or my hobby was, and also did this on the side, was improv. So I performed in an improv group. Yeah, improv comedy. So I did that as well. I mean, I don't know if I was just keeping myself busier. I guess that's the way like the women in my family operate. We're just the busier I am, the more productive I am, the happier I was. But there was always like that missing piece of the puzzle, which I didn't know that piece was missing until I met my husband, and it was like click. But it's a huge switch, right? So switching gears, going from corporate BlackBerry, messaging all like nonstop, all the time, always on, answering customers' emails with sales. So it was like just nonstop. You just go, 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 go. And then I was also coaching as an assistant coach for a high school fencing team that's varsity in New Jersey. So I did that as well. And I played volleyball 3 nights a week.
Good
So
Lord.
That's it.
It's amazing you had time to get into a relationship.
Right. And then, we were flying back and forth every 10 days. So we would literally get on a plane. Yeah. So the marriage happened, but we were still living apart in May. And then it was every 10 days. And then we would literally see each other or 48 hours, maybe, turn around and leave again.
Wow.
So, I mean, it was we're just trying to cram it all in a short time and see each other and make the most of it. Long distance relationship. Yeah.
Amazing. So you went from this very busy, bustling lifestyle. What was it like to go to Germany? So I can imagine being a fan of improv comedy. Suddenly in Germany, improv comedy doesn't work the way it does in the States, because people don't understand your humor. You don't understand their humor. I can understand. I can imagine.
I didn't speak the language when I moved here.
And the language. Right? Okay. So there's no chance you're doing German improv.
I mean, I was improvising all the time, let me tell you, but not in a comedic sense. So, the required language classes I took like right after moving here, because I had really my husband was like, oh my gosh, do something. Because I had organized the sock drawer at that point like 5 times and, trying to keep myself busy in those first few months, the dutiful, like new little wifey making dinner every night. And then he introduced me to the German cold dinner, which I was like, whew, this is fantastic.
This is a miracle.
I just have to spread some stuff on some bread. That's it. There's no casserole so he's like, oh my gosh, you get all these big heavy meals every night. Like, I was doing the typical like casseroles and I was like, oh my gosh, this is great, but you don't need to. And I was like, yeah, I do. No, you don't. And once our son came along, I quickly learned that, the cold dinner was the way to go. It's way easier.
So when we were discussing about the podcast interview and meeting up and having some kind of discussion about this, you sent me something called the 5 phases of culture shock, which is it's basically a curve of what happens that people go through with some explanations of what each phase means. And you said that was pretty much describing your journey more or less.
Whoever put that together was living in my house, I swear. Because, the beginning is that honeymoon stage in the sense that moving here to Germany, everything is so great and wonderful. Oh my gosh. And, look, the Bachwerkhäuser, they all look like Disney, or to me, it was just a whole new world, right? Sure. And it's so different from living outside Manhattan, right? Yeah. And it was all exciting and fun. And then it was like, a couple of years in. Yeah.
And of course, that honeymoon phase is, for you, it was almost literally honeymoon phase in your relationship as well. So it was like
they were coinciding.
So exactly what you said. So I'll read you different parts of this phase. I'll put the links in the show notes. But in the honeymoon phase, it basically says you just entered the country, and this is on a blog. I mean, there's many versions of this curve, I guess. The one that I'm looking at now is on sharethelove.blog. And it's called The 5 Phases of Culture Shock and How to Go Through Smoothly. And this one says how it feels. Everything feels new. All your senses are on alert. Language, odors, gestures, everything seems just so beautifully foreign that you can't do anything else than absorb everything with curious eyes. And there's lots to do. Find a new place to live. Check out new means of transport. Blah, 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 blah. There's no time to miss home or to feel grumpy. The bucket list in your head seems endless, and there are so many things ahead of you that you can't wait to start. That's pretty accurate for what you were saying, I guess.
Oh yes.
So at that point, I guess you were just too busy with this, with setting up this new life to miss the improv comedy and to miss the fencing and to miss volleyball at that point?
Well, the volleyball is the one thing I stuck with. And I kept, like, the minute I was here, I mean, we had to go back for my father's funeral like 6 days after moving here. Whoa. So I had that going on top of it all. And then I'd say the week after we got back, I went down to the local club, signed up for volleyball on Monday nights and then the occasional Wednesday. But that was like the key. I was like, okay, I'm going to keep that up at least. I don't speak the language, but you don't you don't need it, right?
No.
We should all pretty much know the rules by now, how this game works. And then, they accepted me. I had a different, or I still do, we would have, the evening volleyball for like whatever 2 hours, but we'd all go out afterwards. It was just I was waiting for everybody to go hang out. We're gonna go to Applebee's. No, there's no Applebe's. But, the idea that you're gonna go and hang this social, exactly, like this social interaction after. You know that would have had to been
everyone just goes their own way.
Yeah, right. And then like the first year I was only in the country at that point 3 months and went to the Christmas party, and I thought Christmas party, fantastic. So my expectations were super high. I came home like practically in tears. I was like, what in the world? Like, why? This is a Christmas party. You're supposed to be so excited. First of all, I didn't understand anything going on. I mean, I'd had a 5-day intensive Goethe Institute course at that point for A1, A2, A1, I don't know, one of the level. And I tested out of A1, which is like silly because I was doing book on CD in America in my car. And so I was learning all like enough to get the test done, right?
Yeah.
But I had missed so many things with that. It's like I tested, you like study for the test, and then the real life stuff. I was like,
I don't know what's going on.
So I go to this. I have no idea, and they were treating it as though we were playing in the world finale or whatever, and they wanted to play special team, or we're going to play a 2-3. And like they're describing another. Of course, I don't know what is going on. And I went home and I'm like, that was not a party. I don't know what that was.
It was just weird.
Anyway, so I obviously kept going at it and coming back, but the volleyball is what I stuck with. I didn't even have time to think about fencing at that point, or because at that point I was actually taking a break from the sport voluntarily. Like I had been doing it for, at that point, almost 30 years that I needed, not that long, but I needed to take a break. Which then ended up being a lot longer than I thought. So there's that. Pregnancy kind of gets getting stabbed with getting a foil in your belly or whatever. That doesn't work. So you don't realize you miss these things, right? Because you're so caught up in your new world. And we were at the time planning, building a house, picking which door or whatever. And you're just so caught up in whirlwind that I think we finally took like a first breath at like 4 years in. At that point, you've got a newborn, and I mean, you know all about that. So that definitely your mind, everything shifts. So.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Priorities, mind shift.
Yeah, 2016. At that point, our son was 2, and I joined an English language theater group here locally, and I did 3 plays in 1 year. That's not really that smart.
With a kid
as an improv.
You got a kid at home, yeah.
And a husband who I'd like to see occasionally, and like I can't, between the rehearsals and then like dress and memorizing lines. I was like, who has time to memorize lines? Like it's 9:00 at night by the time I'm getting to sit down and relax, recover from the day, and then I've got to And then by the 3rd play in 1 year, I was like, maybe I should take a break. This isn't working out. And, at that point, the time in between visits to the U.S. was a little bit longer because it was, we go back every Christmas. I mean, who knows what's coming up this year, but the idea is we're very fortunate that we at least go once or twice a year.
Hey, cat.
We have a kitten. He's a talker. So
yeah.
He's making his podcast.
He definitely wants to be in a podcast recording because the last one that we did that I had to drop, the cat was in it too. Oh, hi, cat.
Yeah. Anywho, back.
So where were we? Oh, yeah. So right.
I think all these things that I identified with were not there anymore, right? And I have a whole new
old Beth was not there, and there was a new Beth in her place.
Well, I now say I'm eingedeutscht, right? Like there's this sort of, well, it's not sort of. There's a Germanized version of me, right? My sister we were talking about that one Christmas while we were back, and I said, yeah, you just don't make small talk with the cashier, and she's like, what? And I go, no, that like if I do that, they're going to look at me like I have 2 heads, or what planet am I from that I would possibly make eye contact and small talk?
No. The heads will explode.
Get your groceries in the bag and get out of my space. I mean, I'm sure you've done a ton of interviews where people discuss that level of customer service,
whatnot. It's amazing.
I mean, under these current circumstances, I can understand that everybody's a little bit like,
on edge. Like, yeah, but
on edge.
I feel like this is the
bit,
situation they were made for. Like, they've been
training
for their whole lives for this situation in the supermarkets to get like,
right.
Don't know as little personal contact as possible. Plexiglass. Thank you. Been asking for this for years. The supermarket cashiers are in heaven.
Some kind of like curtain or darkening shade would probably be even better for them. Yeah.
They were,
It is fun to kind of make light of the current if you can.
It is, because saying that, I was just thinking, these people are risking their lives every day to go and work at a cashier desk. So my joke, to be clear, was just a joke. Everyone,
thank you. Same here.
I don't want angry letters. I don't want 1-star reviews on Apple Podcasts because I said that the cashiers have been training for this their whole lives. It was just a joke.
I know it's a joke. I mean, it's just, I think sometimes you really have to find the I guess there has, I don't know, for me, the silver lining in all of this is the fact that life has just calmed down a lot. And
what?
The cat opened the door.
So I'm looking at the video here, and you obviously this is an audio podcast, so you wouldn't hear it. But Beth was gesticulating towards something at the back of the room, which is, and your voice didn't change. You were talking completely normally, but your hands were going crazy and toward the background. I'm like, am I supposed to be doing anything?
I can't really. I'm tethered to my phone. I do not have wireless headsets. So I can carry you with me, but I'm trying to keep the door closed, but with a cat who keeps opening it every 2 minutes, that doesn't work out very well.
I'm starting to feel like I should have interviewed the cat.
He is born to be a star, baby.
He just wants to be in on this interview.
Anywho,
all right. So where were you? So yeah, you're eingedeutscht is what you were saying.
Eingedeutscht, thank you.
Yeah. So I'll just go through the second phase of the
oh my God, we haven't even gotten past the first.
No, but you've already started describing, I think, aspects of what happens in the second phase of, at least according to this blog. So second phase is the culture shock phase. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Things like going to the supermarket and doing other things. Now real life kicks in. You keep misunderstanding people around you. You have more and more difficulties in understanding small gestures, and you keep running into the same situations where you don't get what people want from you. Everyday tasks like doctor appointments and shopping are more different than expected. That's what's written here. You start to feel uncomfortable and insecure. Is that accurate for what you were going through in that phase?
I just think it's so interesting to go from my corporate life, right? Like I was handling all these multi-million-dollar accounts, whatever you want to, how you can picture, right? Like type A businesswoman sales call to not even understanding a simple questionnaire at the doctor's office or going to order stamps, buying stamps at the post office. I'm like, oh my God, and you become so reliant on your partner for, everything. You become this almost...
That's hard as well.
Right. From being independent to absolutely dependent. Mm. And I'm, obviously he signed up for this, right? But you're like, even watching a simple film, this is before, Netflix or anything with actual other languages other than German, pausing it every 2 minutes. And be like, okay, what did he say? So simple things like that. You're like, it was just more work, and you just be so. I found myself getting really frustrated, almost to the point, like, I don't know, am I skipping a stage or the anger?
No, let's go. I like the way you said that. Your tone right now is saying that I'm not going to interrupt this flow. We're just going to go there because I got the tone. Easy. Yeah. So you felt a lot of anger. So let me just read to you phase 3, the low point, because I think that's where we're about to go. You may hit rock bottom. Again, the intensity is different for everyone, but this is most likely the time when you start to feel homesick. With the plans you made did not work out. You are not able to find a job, or the job you have just sucks. You have trouble finding new friends, and the more negative experiences you have trying to become friends with locals, the lonelier you will feel. And there's a whole lot of other things. So it sounds to me like that's what it's amazing that there's not a picture of you next to this description, Beth, from what you're telling me.
I had a scale, the a-hole of the day. Like I would come home and just be like, this guy today, I wanted he locked my car in and I wanted to leave, but he needed to get his Brötchen, and that was more important than a mother. And, I'm trying to keep it cool because my child is with me. He was a baby at the point, or he wasn't a newborn, but, maybe 1.5 or so. And he was asleep in the back seat, but I'm trying to be, I'm thinking, I don't want him to sense that I'm like about to blow my mind. And I got out of the car in my best German, and I let him have it. I got Jersey on him, as they would say, in New Jersey. But I was like, oh my! I was like at this level all the time of just aggravated and irritated, and this guy needing his bread, and that he literally, it's not a parking spot. I was like, what planet are you from? That's okay. You can't block a car in to get your.
What was his reaction to your tirade or to your rant?
He like, why would you even be discussing why this is a problem? Like, his eyes got big. He didn't say anything back. I think he was in shock.
That's frustrating, isn't it? That's frustrating when they don't. They just don't.
He didn't do anything.
Yeah, they just don't see it. They don't see.
Yeah,
you did something wrong.
What's the problem, lady? Why are you being so emotional and crazy? And I'm like, dude. So I would just have like these regular examples, and I mean, my really good friend who lives here, she was like my therapist. I was like, God, listen to this. And then she'd have her story, and she's from Greece, and we'd go back and forth about, obviously here I'm talking with my hands, but just to sort of always being my emotional level, or just like, and I was always, I'm an emotional person. So it's not a la carte, like, it's not going to just be like, if I'm angry, I'm angry. If I'm sad, I'm sad. If I'm happy, I'm happy. So I would just and my poor husband would have to like hear all of this. And that's not his job. So hence.
And he was saying, was he saying, who the hell is this person? Like,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, you look up optimist, like, I am the eternal optimist. My glass is always half full. And to go, and that's who we married, and that's who he knows, and that's who we work with as his colleague and who's his friend. I mean, that's our history together. And then he saw the side of me that he's like, what in the world? Like, who is this? And I didn't and I was noticing it myself, going, okay, this isn't going to work. I mean, if obviously we made a commitment, we're not going anywhere, and we're lifers, and I got to figure this out. Like, something's got to give, because you can't live like constantly irritated or frustrated or whatever. So I went to go see a therapist, and that was 3 years ago. And
English therapist.
It's mixed. It's Denglish.
Okay.
But I can express myself better in my native language. So that was 3 years ago. Yeah. So I saw her for about a year, and it was super helpful. You want to know, around the same time as when I discovered Expat Podcast. Okay. And the whole podcasting world, like, really was probably maybe 2 years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago. Wow, there's people out there that have the same feelings. Like, you really feel like you're on a ship out in the ocean on your own. Nobody can relate. And I'm certainly not going to unload on my husband, who's innocent in all of this, right? My sister's like, every once in a while, you can always remind him that, you moved here for him. How many years does that have, like, a shelf life?
I think it's pretty long, forever. Beth. I think that's forever. I think that is forever. It lasts as long as the contract does.
But it's not fair to sit there and be like, all the time, and nagging or whining or whatever you want to call it. So, but it definitely helped for sure. I feel more, and now doing more video chats with my improv group, and I've gotten back into fencing a little bit. I mean, it's one of those great sports for this situation. I can put a mask on and
and a big suit.
Social distance, plenty of distance.
Keep your distance, yeah. There you go, folks. If you're looking for a sport to do during the times of coronavirus, fencing.
Fencing, there it is. Fencing. Actually, that's because of the fencing. I mean, I just think about certain things we do in life or what paths we take. And I'm so thankful that I started that sport, because it's really, I saw the world. It's helped tremendously. So when all this when people can go back to clubs and things, I think, get out there and do something, find your sport and connect with.
So what do you think helped you move beyond that? I mean, obviously the therapy was the thing, but was it that you learned to cope with the anger, or was it that you learned to see things differently?
Well, I would say that was one thing she said to me, was you need to take off your negative glasses. I was doing some tutoring with English, and then doing accounting work, which, as you can see, fits my personality well. So I got hired back with my former company, but as through a third party. So as not a contractor, but basically doing not sales, same department, same company, but never being hired fully back on as an employee. And I just had in my mind, my expectations, which is part of my frustration that I had to get over, was like, they're not hiring you. It's not happening. Like I needed to get to the point where I was like, because I thought I'm going to slide right back in.
Yeah.
And be in sales. Sales, you can't even compare the two between the two countries. So that wasn't happening. And then just this past, so how many, at this point I was 7 years in. So this past November, I started working in outside sales. So not a good time right now to be in outside sales, but
no,
I am loving it. So
you're saying it took 7 years before you found the job that you were happy with. Before that, you were
not fulfilled. I was just at a clear feeling of being unfulfilled, and knowing that I would go into a job interview and be told, "Wow, you've got all the qualifications. You're the best candidate. Wow, your CV is so impressive," and just being talked to in a way you're like, "I got this," right? And then it doesn't. It was every single time. I mean, now I can look back and go, it's comical, because you just be like, what? And then they'd come in and just, which was to me unacceptable, would be just say, oh, well, we need a native speaker.
Yeah.
Your German is great. Oh, it's great. It's great. And it is. I would say my German is very good, but when you tell me you need a native speaker, I can't compete with that. It's not me.
Could have been clear about that up front, people.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe put it in the job posting.
Yeah. Who knows?
The posting would say something like, the posting would be in English, right? With an airline or whoever.
Yeah, and that's something I don't get.
Good knowledge of the German language and the English language. I'm like, got that. And then to just be, just constantly like feeling disappointed and feeling I mean, it was how much of this you're going to go through and then expect to be like, get back out there and do it again. So for this to come along, I'm and now I'm feeling it like all around satisfaction that I haven't felt in a long time. Totally different place than I was. I can't even compare where I am today to where I was 3 years ago.
And what's interesting to me, and I think is good for people listening to this that might be in the early stages of their journey and experiencing the frustration that you were, is that it could take a long time. Like, but obviously things get better at different rates. So your social life might improve drastically 2 years in, and some other aspect will improve like 3 years in, and then your career improves 7 years in. So it's all in phases, I guess, but just keep trying and keep at it.
Oh, that's the number one thing, is that like stick-to-itiveness. Gosh, if I had thought that maybe a year into it or whatever, I mean, I'd be stuck. And I knew that I had to keep going, or I will find that right thing. If there's going to be a click. I was planning on my contract was ending in September. It ended in September, and I was planning on taking those 4 months off between September and just using that time before starting anything else up. They came to me in November. So I had 2 months between that. My son and my husband was like, go off, do your America thing. I wanted the whole autumn experience, pumpkin patch, picking and apple picking and all that stuff. So, and Halloween, trying to get all that, get the costume. And I'm so glad we did that. And came back. It was like, obviously, I don't want to sound hippy dippy, but I was in such a good place mentally. And like at that point had finally given up on the hope that they were going to hire me. Right.
Isn't that funny?
Like once that clicked in my head and I put out to not the universe, or however you want to put it, but I was like, oh, why am I? It's like holding onto a huge weight, or like, thinking it's that thing that you expect. What's the definition of insanity, right? Where you're expecting it to change, and it just wasn't. So once I let go of that, it was like, oh, this job interview was great. Oh, they're like, because they knew me before, so they had some knew my personality. They knew that I'm a little more outgoing than your average fare, and it's a German company. I speak German at work. There's very, very little English, so.
So it actually couldn't have happened earlier anyway. This fulfilling job. It's very, very interesting. Yeah. Yes. So to come back to the curve, because it's a theme, Beth.
Oh my gosh, we're still on.
Can you still on this goddamn curve? Can we leave it alone?
It's like a roller coaster ride.
I am regretting sending it to you. Jesus.
Holy cow. All right.
To get back to
What
the
stage are we
curve,
at?
Beth. We're getting back to the curve. The phase
Achtung.
4. Achtung. Phase 4. Acceptance, adjustment, and integration. My curiosity is back. I start to see the differences again in a more positive. Was she writing in the first person before? This seems like a new development in this blog. No, yeah, she was writing in the second person before, and now she's writing in the first person. Anyway, the message is this.
This is coming from the guy telling everybody. This is the guy telling everybody to use Dame for everything, and now you're like the grammar police.
This is not second person to first person. What the hell?
I mean, seriously, who can live in this world?
I cannot delete this website from my computer. Clear
sorry,
cache.
Please. I think I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I am more interested in experiencing more of this foreign culture than hiding behind my own background. I've started to establish a local network. Every day I meet new stuff, blah, blah, blah. We're very happy. At this point, it's acceptance, adjustment, and integration. Is that where you are? Acceptance,
yes.
Adjustment, integrated?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wasn't there something about when you go back to, what was it with your native country? What was there? Something about going back to your native country?
Yes, that's the next phase. Differently? Easy. Jesus. You're running the curve, Beth. Don't jump the curve.
Unbelievable. This is ridiculous. All right. Acceptance, absolutely. Yes, I'm integrated. I'm accepted. I am. Yes, for sure. I agree. I agree with that. Yeah.
Next on the curve.
Where are you on the curve, Sean? You're here longer than I am. Yeah.
Oh God, I'm way past all of this. Parts I'm off the curve. I've gone way beyond the curve. I'm making my own little bell curve somewhere out in space at this point. But yeah, the phase 5, the re-entry shock. That is where you go back to your home country and pretty much have culture shock, reverse culture shock, I guess, if you're looking at that. Did you experience that? Kind of a reverse culture shock?
I can't speak now that I'm in sweatpants quite a bit of the time. But I just remember going back last November I went to a friend's wedding in San Francisco, and at the airport, arriving and leaving, I thought, maybe it's the time of day. I don't know. Seeing everybody in sweatpants, literally one person was in those fleecy pajama bottoms. I go, what? Why don't you just bring your pillow with you? I mean, your whole makeup kit. I don't know. I mean, literally, you just feel like people were still getting ready for the day as they're walking to the gate and sitting at the gate. I thought, oh, what is going on? And I just remember, and everybody's wearing, I can't believe active wear, right?
Right.
So maybe that's slowly going to move this way. But I mean, we just don't leave. I can't speak till now, but to this current time, but leaving the house in sweatpants, I mean, on a morning walk, sure, you're exercising, but I'm rarely.
Generally, no. Yeah,
generally not. So that was my biggest observation, I guess, was the
sweatpants,
the leisure wear. But other than that, and the small talk and whatnot that we talked about before, but
yeah. All right. So and you asked me where I am on the curve, and I think I'm I fully relate to all of those phases and what happens in the different phases. I experienced them as well way back when, but I find that it's sometimes not exactly a very linear curve, because in the past I went back sometimes. So I maybe got into the acceptance phase and then had phases where I was just frustrated with everything in the new culture and stuff.
It's coming back?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's going to happen to you, Beth. No. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen. It was just my experience. But
it's not
generally,
gonna be puppies and rainbows moving forward.
No,
it's gonna be
no. But generally, you move. I think when it happens later on, it's more temporary, and you know that you can feel it's temporary, and then you move back to some kind of norm in the acceptance zone, if you want to call it that. At least that's my experience. I can't speak for everyone, but that's my.
Well, yeah, you know that you've lived through it before. You've survived it. You know there's an end in sight. Yeah, I can see that. Because
a big adjustment for me or for us was also later on when we moved to the country. And I don't know if you experienced that, because you also live somewhat rurally, but moving to the Franconian countryside was almost like moving countries, because it's very, very culturally different out here. I don't know if that's something you experienced as well.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we didn't move so far. We were 10 minutes up the road, but it's, to go having your Straßenbahn, to have the tram right in front of your front door, basically, and having that, I had to get a car. basically, to get around and whatnot. But yeah, it was a little bit different, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, you do take those.
And the dialect, forget it. When they speak in dialect to me, I'm like, okay, smile and wave,
Yeah, it's the same here. It's you cannot follow when they're in the dialect. So yeah, so Beth, what words of wisdom do you have for new foreigners coming?
I would say, find a club, get into find your people, find your tribe as soon as you can. During these times, that's a little more trying, I would guess, but
it's a complication.
It's a tough one, but I would say, I don't know, maybe there is a way to, through chat groups or through Facebook group, through English speaker. Every city has an English speakers group page on Facebook, at least. But find your peeps and the podcast. To me, I don't know. This is not the one piece of advice. I'm now going into a second one. Is these expat podcasts, like yours in particular?
That's very good.
Quite helpful.
Well played. Well played.
I know.
Carry on speaking.
See that plug?
Continue speaking.
Absolutely wonderful.
Give as many bits of advice as you want.
You just, what a life change. It absolutely opened. I was like, wow, other people are living this. What? Yeah, of course, right? So for sure, just find a way to connect. Because I've known people that have moved over and moved back almost instantly because they didn't, find it for whatever the reasons are. But generally, the common thread there was no connection to this place. And I said, for those of us who I know I'm here for quite a while, so yeah,
that helps.
It helps to be connected with people or clubs or this town you live in or whatever it is. Find a way the Verbindung, to find your way to be connected.
Beth, do you want to be found, and where can people find you?
Oh, the old Graham. No, what's the slang for Instagram? On the Insta?
The old Insta. Sorry, she did.
All you hip and cool kids out there.
That's the way you sound. That's the way you sound, hip Beth. So you can find me on the old Gram.
You can find me on the Insta, on the in. I want to be in.
I'm on the IG.
That's
a little too late for us.
That app. Totally, right?
Okay, Instagram. What are you on Instagram?
Oh, Beth in Germany.
Beth in Germany. Okay.
Beth in Germany.
So find Beth in Germany on Instagram. And I'll put the links in the show notes, as I always say.
Thanks.
All right,
Thanks,
Beth.
Sean.
Well, it's been fun, and thank you for sticking with me through 2 failed attempts at a pre-interview, a failed interview, and now finally, Beth, this is it. This is the one.
I would say let's do it again, but I don't want to jinx it.
No, don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
I think I've told you all my stories. I don't have any more.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you. All right. Thanks for listening. You can follow me on Instagram at thegermany.experience. You can follow me on Facebook. There's a Germany Experience Facebook group where you can get into discussions about the episodes if you want, or anything else that you feel like talking about. And you can also go to thegermanyexperience.de. And as I mentioned before, you can leave me voicemails there. You can click on Be on the Show and ask to get on the show. All these kinds of things are available there. Music, as always, theme song by my band, 10 Cent Janes, and additional music by Ryan Anderson, Until the End. Thanks for listening. Auf Wiederhören.